Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also welcome to the reading vlog for the subscriber pick for the month of October 2024, which was Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, who is, as you will know, one of my favorite authors of all time. For those of you who don't know, subscriber picks are monthly reading vlogs in which you choose a book from a poll over on my community tab for me to read, vlog and share my thoughts about with you. And the book that you chose for the month of October was Interpreter of Maladies. I mean, subscriber picks are supposed to be monthly, but these past few weeks have not been that great, so that's why the delay in starting as well as reading this book. But I also feel like you all thought enough is enough. We've been hearing, I'm so excited to read this book about this particular book from me for way too long, and you took matters into your own hands and you chose this book. So thanks to you, here I am ready to read what is arguably Jhumpa Lahiri's most famous and most loved book. So what I know about this book is that it is a collection of short stories for which Jhumpa Lahiri won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2000, I think it was. See, for me personally, I don't need anything other than the name Jhumpa Lahiri on a book to read said book, but for the sake of this vlog, let me read out the blurb which is on the back of this book. Jhumpa Lahiri's prize-winning debut collection explores the lives of Indians in exile, of people navigating between the strict traditions they've inherited and the baffling new world they must encounter every day. Whether set in Boston or Bengal, these sublimely understated stories, imbued with humor and subtle details, speak with eloquence to anyone who has ever felt the yearnings of exile or the emotional confusion of an outsider. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this reading vlog and let's read the subscriber pick that you chose for me for the month of October 2024, which was Interpreter of Maladies by my all-time favorite, Jhumpa Lahiri. So I've just finished reading the first story. This has torn me apart from inside. It has left me feeling bereft because of what it talks about. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it is called A Temporary Matter, and it follows a husband and wife who are living in America. I think it's in Boston, and they are going like ships in the night kind of situation after something has happened in their life. Something very huge has happened in their life, and this is the Lahiri that I know and I love. There is so much feeling in this book that I just didn't want it to stop. I had to take breaks while reading the story, but I didn't want it to stop. When the story finished, and on such a note that too, so I'll probably come and give you an update after each story like this, but man, this is something else. Why was I sleeping on this book? Why was I dragging my feet on why? Like, there's absolutely no reason why I should have done that, but I did, and now I'm like, oh, not you. I finished the second story last night and I became so emotional while reading it. It is very unassuming. It'll hit you when you don't think it will. It is very unexpected in how it talks about Mr. Pirzada and how he comes to dine. The title itself is very unassuming. Like, Mr. Pirzada comes to dine. He is the main character Lilia's parents' friend. he comes to dine, and she talks about how they have dinner every day. But the background to it, the background to Mr. Pirzada's life, what has been happening in his life, and the political background as well, because the author takes us back to around, I think it was 1971, which the story was set, when East Pakistan was fighting for sovereignty, and which eventually became Bangladesh. And this is a story that is so quiet but is also so loud in how it talks about Mr. Pirzada's feelings while centering Lilia. Because everything that happened over there in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and the riots and the looting and the praying and the fighting for independence and sovereignty, it all, in a way, it does not affect her. To just see how her relationship with Mr. Pirzada develops along the way in the sweetest way possible, it was just mind-blowing. I loved Lilia, and I loved the story so much more for it. To see that, to see how Lilia behaved, and then to wonder, what would I do if I were in that situation? Why do I do this to myself? Why do I keep putting these amazing books off, and especially one by one of my favorite authors of all time? Anyway, so now I'm at the third story, which is the titular Interpreter of Maladies, and I will be reading it for a bit now. Yeah, let's start reading and let's see how much more emotional this story is going to make me. I just finished reading Interpreter of Maladies, that is the titular short story in this, and it is a relatively longer one when compared to the other stories in this, at least so far. And that's not saying much because this is just the third story in this collection, but this is so heavy with meaning. It has so many things that you need to grasp as you're moving through it, because there's not just one thing. It talks about responsibility, about pain, about guilt, about people from different cultures and geographies, and what happens when they interact, how their interactions can go, and how the interpretation of those interactions can be. And the story also talks about how life can be so much of a stress, of a burden, of how it can bring one person down, and how that downness or something, it sort of pushes us into a dreaming of a fantasy, even though we objectively know that it is wrong. Okay, so this is the story of Mr. Kapasi, who is a tour guide, and he is showing the Das family who has come from America to the Konark Sun Temple. And in this process, he mentions that this is just his part-time job, but he works as an interpreter for a doctor, because people in this area, in these parts, don't speak Gujarati, so he translates it for the doctor. So then on, Mrs. Das, she sort of takes an interest to what he's saying, and she tells him that, okay, tell us about the patients that come to your, etc, etc. And then Mr. Kapasi he is transported into a sort of a fantasy, which kind of comes full circle towards the end in a way that I can't really explain. So basically, this story, Interpreter of Maladies, is an interpretation of responsibility, both of Mr. Kapasi's role as the doctor's interpreter, as well as that of a human male. So when these two come together, and when everything sort of comes to a climax in the end, that is where the whole essence of the story lies. And sometimes we just think that, oh, this is going to be so much better, I'm going to start fantasizing about this, life is going to look so much more beautiful and brighter if this were to happen. But that doesn't always happen. So it sort of opens your eyes. It comes back to the same thing: responsibility, fantasy, reality, pain, guilt, all of this combined. Another classic Jhumpa Lahiri story, and at the beginning I was like, where? Don't go there, don't go there. But then as the book progressed, it was like, I see what you did there. The analogies that she uses as interpreter, it's next level. She is, that's why I love her so much. So hi, I have been reading The Interpreter of Maladies, not The Interpreter of Maladies, and I have read 2 more stories of this. Numbers 4 and 5. Number 4 was, what was its name again? A Real Durwan, which is so unsettling in so many ways. And then number 5 was a story called Sexy, which made me uncomfortable because of the subject it deals with. Let me tell you what I thought about both of these stories, one after the other. So the 4th story, which is The Real Durwan, is, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but it is a story of a 60+ woman who is the sort of an unofficial caretaker of an apartment kind of building. So she sweeps the stairs, halls, corridors, and she acts as a watch person for the building, and she keeps questionable characters away. Basically just takes care of the building, all the while reminiscing about the old days and claiming that her family used to be rich. One day she goes up to the terrace and to air out her bedding, which she thinks there are mites in them and they're biting her all over when she sleeps. So she just wants to beat those bugs out of the bedding. And another resident of the building comes up at the same time. She sees the state of it and promises to get her new ones. But that very evening, this resident's husband comes home with 2 basins or sinks, saying that he has gotten promoted at work. And this sets off a series of events that is so angering and that is so upsetting in so many ways. It is also eye-opening towards how people can behave. It really shows the hypocrisy of society and how people are willing to believe anything about a person, especially if the said person is someone who they consider to be below their social caste or class. And the story is so sad. I finished it and it left me so sad and lonely and bereft, as if it was showing me all the reasons why humanity is crap. So much so that I had to pause reading the next story because my mind kept going back to this one, but I eventually got to it, and this next story is also something that made me super uncomfortable. This is called Sexy, and it is about Miranda who is listening to her co-worker's stories about the co-worker's cousin's husband finding someone else and leaving her for that new woman. And now Miranda has also met someone new, and this someone new is also married. How this story goes on this whole journey, it's just, I know it's not a lot to go on, but if I say anything else about it, it'll be like giving up the whole essence of the story. But also, this is one that you have to keep through and read till the very end, because otherwise you'll just get super annoyed at the beginning, just 3 or 4 pages in, and you'll be like, what are you doing? Don't do this, that kind of thing. So basically this is a story about infidelity, but it is also a story of finding fidelity for yourself, of staying true to yourself, of not giving yourself up for things like this. I mean, I'm no one to judge, but it just seems off, because infidelity as a subject is something that I always frown upon. See, as much as I wish that mistakes weren't made at all, it's better to have made them and learned from them and come to your senses than to have made them and keep going or not come to one's senses. So basically, I love both these stories, but it's just, they made me super uncomfortable. They are like full of discomfort, and I think that is the intention behind Jhumpa Lahiri writing these stories as well. It's to provoke thought, it's to provoke nuance, it's to provoke you to dig deeper into what compels a human being behind to do whatever it is that they do, but it's also to show that darker shade that lies below the surface of humanity as a whole. Yeah, so now I'll be moving on to the sixth story, which is called Mrs. Saints, and I hope that this is also something I don't need to hope or pray or wish for anything, because I know Jhumpa Lahiri is going to make me think. She's going to do her thing. So I just finished reading the sixth story in this book. It's called Mrs. Sane, and it's about a young, I think 10 or 11-year-old boy called Elliot, who goes to Mrs. Sane's house where she is taking care of him while his mother works. So Elliot goes there every day, and what he sees, what Mrs. Sane does, and how she behaves, how she tries to drive but she can't. Hello, I mean, she's very scared, and that is something that I relate to on an extreme level, because two-wheeler, cool, easy, I can drive, but a four-wheeler, for the life of me, I cannot. Plus also the fact that she lives in America, far away from her family, and she feels that loneliness and she feels that isolation from family, and the fact that she can't go to them in the snap of a finger because we are living so far away. It endeared me to her. It made me relate to her in a way that I maybe didn't think I would when we started the story, but as we went through, we see her thoughts, we see her emotions come out and play. It's a good one. It's a rather long, tedious one, and fish plays a huge role in the story, but yeah, it is Jhumpa Lahiri. It's good. She makes this into a story that is so thought-provoking and gut-wrenching in its own way, because it makes you feel alone, but also not alone, because you're like, yes, I'm not the only one like Mrs. Sen. So that is story number 6. I think I'm going to finish the book today. I mean, I'm going to take a break now. I won't read for a bit. I just want some, I don't know what from, a rest, but hi, hello. So I finished reading the next story in this, the 7th story, which is called This Blessed House, and this follows Sanjeev and Twinkle, who are now settling into their house. They bought a house for a very reasonable price, and now in this house they keep finding Christian artifacts, statues of Jesus, Mary, Joseph. They're finding posters, and there's a lot of statues. There's the Virgin Mary that they find in the lawn, and then there's something they find in the attic when they host a party. Sanjeev is not really happy with displaying all of this in the house, because he's like, this, we are Hindu, so displaying Christian stuff doesn't sound right, and I don't like it, he says. But Twinkle is very insistent. She becomes emotional when he says he's going to throw them out, and then they reach a sort of a compromise of sorts. But my interpretation of the story is about arranged marriages, and they've only known each other for 4 months, and they don't have that kind of an understanding yet. They are still getting to know each other in some ways because of the speed of the relationship. They met 4 months ago, got married 2 months ago, and because of that there are a lot of places where they feel the friction and they are not ready to compromise yet. And but still when they see emotion from the other person, they are prepared to do that. They are like, okay, I made this person cry, so maybe I've got to do something in order to make this right. And it's a great glimpse into a relationship like that, but it also shows the divide between two religions, between how you see a religion that you belong to, as well as how you treat another religion or artifacts of another religion, anything for that matter, whatever might come up in front of you. And Sanjeev and Twinkle are two different people who see things in completely different ways. So once you realize that these two people don't know each other that well, because it starts off in a sort of Sanjeev saying in a very irritated manner something to Twinkle, like throw it out or something, and I was like, why are you speaking like that? Like you're not even seeing it. But as the pages progress, you see that these two people don't know each other that well. Maybe it is because of that this friction, that this acting up, that this irritation occurs. So maybe as time goes by, this will evolve into a sort of harmony that exists between husband and wife. But either way, it's an indicator of how compromise plays such an important role in a relationship, like especially like that of a husband and wife. So this was a very interesting story to read. I mean, it's not my favorite of the lot, but it is still interesting, and Jhumpa Lahiri makes it interesting in a way. But that's all I have to say for the story. I actually won't be able to finish the book today because I'm like dead tired for whatever reason, and I really want to go to sleep, although I know that might not happen. So I'm going to put this off to finishing it tomorrow and hope that actually comes true. Hi there. First of all, let me just take a moment to acknowledge my hair. I did a little hair experiment last night where I braided it for heatless curls and all of that. And when I removed the braids in the morning, I really liked how it came out. But now when I'm looking at the screen here, it makes me look like Paramahamsa Yogananda. And I feel weird about it. Anyway, so that's not the point that I'm trying to make. Wait, let me... Okay, this is better? Yeah. So I finished reading Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri a few days ago. I wasn't able to film because of various reasons. Like the heat here is so oppressive. I just don't feel like doing anything. It's that kind of lazing around the house, head all fuzzy, and it's just that kind of situation going on. So I wasn't able to film anything for that matter. So at the last update, I was supposed to be reading stories 8 and 9, the last couple of stories in this collection, and I did read them, and let me just say, this whole collection is a masterpiece. There's nothing about this book that I find odd, or there's nothing about this book that I can pick apart to say this is a part of this book that I did not like. Because all of the topics that Jhumpa Lahiri handles in this collection, they are so well written and so good. She handles themes of family and individuality and nostalgia and homecoming and living so far away from home. It's just that human connection that you find in all of her books, and it's so much more pronounced in this because there are 9 such books. And you also have these kind of themes of society and societal treatment, societal rules, and all of that she explores in here. And the way she does it in a sort of and I'm an observer and I'm telling you this, but I'm also putting so much emotion into it that you are going to bawl, you are going to cry. That sort of writing Jhumpa Lahiri has, and she employs it to the fullest effect in this book. So story number 8 in this book is the treatment of Bibi Haldar, and Bibi in this story has an ailment, an illness that nobody seems to be able to cure. And then at one point it comes to the discussion or something that Bibi needs to get married, and that's the only solution to her illness, to her ailment. And that sort of egged me out, but that is an accurate representation of what society is like. Society thinks that a woman can be cured once she gets married. Like, marriage is the cure all of everything. It's the magic medicine. It's the one amazing thing that can happen to a woman. How Bibi is treated by her family, how she is treated by her strangers. Because we've seen in earlier stories in this book how strangers can be so cruel, but in this we see the exact opposite. We see how strangers step up, how they are there for Bibi. So the story itself I won't say anything more about, because this is the kind of story that it has a tiny plot twist that will break your mind in its own way. But then again, this story, it's like very unexpected, but it's also expected, and in combining those two, Jhumpa Lahiri gives us a gem of a story. And then the last story is called The Third and Final Continent, in which a Bengali man, he moves to London first to do his studies, and then he moves to America, and there is where he settles down. So now he's newly married and he's waiting for his wife to arrive from India, and how their life goes on. It seems like pretty simple story, but you also see how life abroad is. Like, it's not easy to make connections abroad. So when he does, there are some that will stay with him for the rest of his life. So in the end, what this story is trying to say is how it's the human connection that matters so much. And no matter which nationality you are, no matter where you are from, that one single strand of humanity is enough to keep you going. And it's enough to make a dent in your life in a way that you will remember it for a long time to come. And it's such a great story to go out on as well, because it's a simple story, but it is also so weighty with emotion and meaning and so much more. I love this book. It's like 5 stars. This was my second read of 2025 and I love it. And I'm so glad, I'm so glad. If you're asking me at this point whether you should be picking this book up, then my answer is a very emphatic yes. Please read this book. It's fabulous, it's amazing. Jhumpa Lahiri, the woman that she is, amazing. So that was my reading vlog for Interpreter of Maladies. What did you think of this reading vlog? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have you read Interpreter of Maladies? If you have, what did you think of it? And if you haven't, will you pick this book up after watching my reading vlog? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.